Glassblowing is an art that takes a team to create beautiful pieces. At Water Street Glassworks, Jordan Rose and Lexi Zeberth work together to make some amazing works.
My name is Jordan Rose, and my position is Studio Tech and Instructor at Water Street Glassworks. Lexi, if you could add a little bit of that orange to a scoop so I can make sure I cover the bottom.
I originally started here because I was just here all the time, and then they're like, we should probably be paying you because you're here so often. My name is Lexi Zeberth. Position is kind of hard. So I tech, I teach, I do a little bit of everything here.
Paddle on.
So Jordan and Lexi are glass partners. Unlike most mediums, glassblowing requires a team, so anything that they're making, it requires at least another person.
I don't want to say like yin and yang, but they feed off each other. Their personalities are just enough different where they're able to complement one another. You see the personality differences where Jordan is, let's go, let's do it. And Lexi is, that's a great idea. Let's think about how we're going to do it. And so they are so great at feeding off each other and working together. And their personalities are just both positive and great to be around.
We are able to instinctually know what the person's going to do next, where that person's going to move around the studio. Are they going to need a colored foot? Does it need to be 2, 3 gathers? And just how to kind of move around each other. And, there's almost a silent communication level that happens between really good partners. And I think Lexi and I have accomplished that well. And flatten. And flip. And flatten one more time.
I started with our TGI Friday classes. At the time, they were just kind of like, come in on Fridays, bring your own glass. We might have a project for you to do, but you can kind of also do your own thing, kind of like a free studio. And then I just started taking more advanced classes to where like, oh yeah, if you're gonna teach this class, this is how you do it. And then I took all of the classes we offered, and I kind of had nowhere else to go but just to be here.
I actually taught Lexi previous to meeting her here at Krasl Art Center. I was a camp counselor there for a number of years. So I've kind of watched Lexi grow up throughout the years. I first encountered Lexi here at Water Street, I don't know, probably 7, 8 years ago. And she was just such a creative kid. I knew immediately that, this was going to stick for her.
Throughout middle school and high school, I was in the Fired Up program, learning how to do all of like the booth work and talking to people and selling your own art, which was really fun. And I stayed here more. So I learned how to do the kilns, run the kilns. And then during Fired Up, I actually switched to being in the glass blowing studio. That's where I learned how to do all the glass blowing. And then again, I just kind of hung around until they were like, okay, this is how you do this. This is how you do this. You can tech now.
Yeah, Lexi wears lots of hats. She leads our Spark program, which is a volunteer-based program in our fusing studio. She also helps teach the Fired Up program with me on Thursdays. So, having an alumni do that, I think is more meaningful. And as far as like the work that Lexi's making, she's doing a really cool thing where she's, a ceramics major in college, but she, has this skill set that maybe not all ceramic majors have, right? This experience over a long period of time with glass. So she's blending these two mediums together and making some really compelling work.
It's fascinating to watch her, just in the time that I've been here, watch her grow in her role, in her teaching role, and see the possibilities of what she's going to do with her educational background and her arts background.
So I went to College for Creative Studies on the other side of the state in Midtown Detroit. CCS is one of the only schools in the state of Michigan that teaches glass blowing. And so there was something about the fluidity of movement and the studio art dance, as glassblowers call it, that you move around the studio that just was rhythmic and kind of enticing and kind of really draws you in to watch it. So I spent some time watching it and then just quickly took a class and just fell head over heels for it. So my first glassblowing job in that was actually at Cedar Point in Ohio. They wanted and encouraged students in glassblowing to then come and teach glassblowing. So I started there as doing production glass, which was very experimental. We were pretty much given free reins on what type of things we wanted to design and make. So I started there. I spent a good summer there, went back to school, did a year of school. The next year, I spent a summer at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan. While I was there, I worked with a couple different visiting artists, but we did very traditional historic glass blowing. Not only were you blowing in a true historic glass blowing studio that they moved to Henry Ford, but then you were making the history of it.
So I met Jordan here at Water Street Glassworks, I would say about 2018, and she was just graduating college around that time or about to graduate college. So she took a different path than a lot of our students here, where, she was formally trained by a fantastic school in Detroit called CCS, College for Creative Studies. And so, when I had the opportunity to hire her back here, gather some of that wealth of knowledge that she learned in school and, harness that for Water Street. Far as glass, it's been a largely male-dominated medium. It wasn't until the 1960s where the studio glass movement came to be that you started to see women in leadership roles in the studio.
When you go back to historic Italian Venetian glass blowers, there weren't really women on the island except for wives or daughters. They were not allowed in the studio. And so it's a lot of families who have had girls and not boys. The art has died just because it wasn't allowed.
Oh my gosh, I can't even begin to describe all of my favorite art pieces that people have contributed to male artists, and they're not. Different manuscripts would be made by female artists, but they were not legally allowed to do that. So then they would have to sell it under their dad's name, and they never got the credit for it. So I feel like there's definitely not a presence of women in art, but I feel like there always has been. We just don't always recognize it.
I think the future of glass is women. I think that most innovation is coming from women nowadays in glass, and I think it's a really awesome thing.
Lexi and Jordan both have wonderful support systems. They both have mothers who are involved at Water Street. Both of their mothers volunteer here, and they already are mentors to the students that we have here. And I don't think that they realize yet what mentors they are, but they are.
Because glassblowing is a dance and has so much free movement, it really takes on emotion. And I think that really is emulated beautifully in glass that isn't necessarily emulated in other mediums.
You can pick up a glass and you drink out of a glass every day, but you don't realize all of the work that one has put in, the amount of history that's behind it. We work with the same tools that Egyptians worked with, and people would never know that history if it wasn't for this place and places like it. So I think it's really interesting to come back to your roots almost, and to have a deeper understanding of this everyday object. It's kind of the same as ceramics with plates, but it's just this nice, down-to-earth, I made this with my own hands, and it's functional, and it looks good, and it's just it's so touching, I guess.